Good morning. This is the AdlerianFrog Podcast. I'm John Surmont, your host. Going to continue with the Man in the Box series, and this is episode 8 of Man in the Box. It's called Insight, published January 24th, 2017, read by yours truly, August 7th, 2017. Life is an autonomous event which takes place between the organism and the environment. Rogers, 1959, page 196. Insight. Writing my first paper about the importance, difficulty, and duality of the role of a therapist or counselor. My first reflection is that words like morality, ethics, law, professionalism, and best practices are not the first words that come to mind when thinking about sitting in the chair, quote unquote, in service to another human being. For me, Kagan summarizes it best in his paper, The Evolving Self, a process conception for ego psychology, where he acknowledges the importance and prominence of neo-psychoanalytic ego psychology, Hartman, 1939, Erickson, 1968, Keynes, 1975, including object relations theory, Fairbairn, 1952, Winnicott, 1965, Maslow, 1954, Binswanger, 1963, and May, 1958, whose most influential exponent for counseling and clinical psychology has surely been Carl Rogers, 1951, close quote. As I read his article, it occurs to me that duality cannot be denied. There is a form of duality in the very act of psychotherapy itself. This actually is what I would consider to be the nesting doll dilemma. And I'll talk more about this in developing what I would consider to be a universal and very common blue-collar, working-class kind of attachment understanding that provide a bit more ligature for the attachments. I mean, we don't just define an attachment of a tendon, right, to a bone. There's a details. There's an incredible amount that's happening. It's not just a piece of meat like a tendon somehow stuck to a bone. There's a lot more going on. I think there's a lot more going on in attachment and attachment instability for human beings, and I'm excited, and I'm continuing my studies and investigation, exploration, and I've come up with a metaphor and a story around this nesting doll dilemma. As a matter of fact, it's the core driver for the science fiction project that I've started working on. I'm very happy about it. I'm not sure if I want to do this in a movie format or a television series format. I'm thinking towards bigger screen, blockbuster kind of thing, and it will be 3 to 6 episodes, and they will be 90 to 220 minute shows at a time. Anyway, I'm sidetracked. I'm actually focused on reading this article for you. Anyway, there is a form of duality in the very act of psychotherapy itself, meaning both selves are constantly making meanings of their environment and the client, seeking help in meaning-making in the hopes to find relief of whatever ails them. For me, learning how to deftly, humanely, ethically, and morally identify the approaches is the only ethical choice that therapists can take in ensuring that they're attending to the development of the activity of meaning construction. This is actually an anxiety-producing realization for me. How can I integrate so much? I know. Pick one theory and start with that, and do not theory hop. I understand that would be harmful, unethical, inhumane, and possibly illegal, I guess. I do find myself wondering how to navigate what I would call the psychological thicket. I realize in my own way, I can become rigid in my own activities of meaning construction and thinking. That's why mindfulness and meditation are incredibly therapeutic. Learning now that even a walk serves to assist me in almost a voyeuristic way as I observe my own process for meaning construction. Fascinating. Here's the deal. That's a dilemma as I see it, and you and I have talked. We've talked about this Russian nesting doll concept. If I were to take 2 cups, these are just empty paper cups, and I would lay them on the table. I would just sit them on a table as one cup would be sat on a table and another cup would be sat on a table. If these cups are empty, let's say that they are human form. Let's add water to each cup, maybe fill it halfway up. Now we've got 2 cups with water in them. Let's say that cup contains water, like a human form and frame contains a spirit, like spirituality, a psyche, a conscious awareness of self and others. Let's say that water is what provides that spirituality and that connection to one another. and to themselves. Now, let's think about it. If that cup through that water has conscious awareness, is it aware of the other cup? Now, cup is easy for us to understand from a structure perspective and a systems perspective and an object relations perspective. Let's say we could give a table consciousness. Is the table aware of the cup, the two cups that are resting on it? See, we don't think about that, but it's important to point out that we are essentially a nesting doll ourselves, and we are in a nesting doll experience ourselves. If I were to take those two cups, pour the water out, and put one cup inside the other one, and then I were to essentially ask you if you could believe whether or not those cups could be filled with water and connected to each other, nested like that, and be aware of each other or not, we'd probably have an interesting discussion about that. You might tell me they can. There could be insight, and you might tell me there likely won't be insight. That's the dilemma. See, the nesting doll dilemma essentially says, I say there are 37.2 trillion nests inside each and every human form. I believe, theoretically, that our soul has a weight, 2.5 ounces. I'm still working through what that means and how to quantify that. But it's a fascinating conversation. Anyway, continuing it, this is kind of a quantum, tricky, thorny duality. It's hard not to be looking at when you're looking around. Now, for me especially, there's really no right or wrong way to assist somebody in meaning construction, because the actual moment between each individual client and therapist is the meaning, whether it's constructed or not, and whether it's constructed purposefully or not, essentially is irrelevant. The meaning is the meaning. Participation, motivation, energy, and hopefully transference are separate, but equal parts of the process, and to be able to ethically, morally, and legally facilitate this integration through various theories in order to assist and then support an individual in their journey is important. In other words, it's not the making of the pizza that matters, it's the process of construction of the pizza in steps, and then transferring these behaviors, skills, and ultimately habits and attitudes, which is the real emphasis. Now, as I am constructing meaning of my own life experiences, especially grad school and other things, I am reminding myself of how important meaning construction is. In other words, I'm learning now to separate, well, I've learned this and I've relearned it and I'm relearning it again. And like I say, remembering is not a bad thing. It's actually very helpful and therapeutic. I would also posit that we tend to be sure about things, and we end up creating more problems for ourselves when we lose that openness in our attitudes and our behaviors. In anywhere, if you ask Professor Adler, if you look around the world and you see a lack of courage, what's preceding the courage is the problem, and it's encouragement. If you see behaviors, courageous acts that are harmful, they've been encouraged somehow. So people are not doing things they're discouraged to do. They're doing what they're being encouraged to do. That's the nature of things. It's whether or not you can see and construct the meaning that would be producing the encouragement for that particular set of behaviors. That's the challenge. Are you mentally strong enough to look and then allow yourself to see? That's the question. As a young SEAL, my teammates, brothers, and I decided we wanted to build a fire at one of the fire pits in Pacific Beach and hang out one Friday night circa 1993. Our goal was typical for men our age and time. Find a beach, build a fire, then enjoy clear, clean Southern California night skies, sounds of ocean, the surf, smell of the ocean, the beach tangling with the smoke from our fire. And we also, most importantly, were looking forward to the conversations we would have with one another. In some ways, we were also in our own process of constructing meanings, learning how to do that. We were joining a new nest in a phrase, in a form that I will use as I continue to flesh out this science fiction project. I cannot count the number of times I spent around a fireplace late at night with my brothers, elders, and others invited into our circle. Now I understand that that was a built-in and deeply embedded way for myself and others to learn in my tribe how to construct meaning of our lives and our mission. As the sun started to set, I found a parking spot. I had a 1969 VW bus. By the way, it wouldn't pass the smog, had wooden bumpers, no back seats, plenty of room for surfboards, wetsuits, and firewood. Firewood and coolers, though. As I parked, I grabbed an armful of firewood, made my way down the steep, uneven, rocky approach to the beach. I could see dozens of fire pits already alive with fire, and people gathering around them. Scanning to my right, I spotted a dwindling fire with one lonely individual singing and playing a guitar. Curious and with sore arms, I headed towards this fire pit, and this young man, as I approached, was singing in full voice a sad song from a famous band. Without even thinking, my buddies and I, following me, approached him, and I had a big grin on my face. I said, "Hey, man, we've got some wood, plenty of beer. Can we join you?" His response was classic. "Sure, man, that's cool, but you have to listen to me sing and play for as long as I need to." In my mind, as long as it wasn't illegal, we'd probably be okay with it. It was this or no fire, so out of choices, I and the rest of us were all ears. Relieved, I dropped a load of firewood next to his fire pit and said, "Send it, brother. We're here. We'll keep the fire stoked. You sing and play, and we're right here with you." So this man played his guitar, and he was excellent. He sang one song over and over, and it was by the Rolling Stones, and it's called "You Can't Always Get What You Want." To advance the lyrics, but if you try sometimes, you just might get what you need. You know, I always think about this fellow when I hear this song. And as my life has unfolded, I reflect on the words. I was always curious about what he was trying to do or to figure out. He just kept singing this song over and over. Each time, it would be like he would sing a bit differently. Always sad, scraping emotions out of his voice. Sometimes a deep, deep, deep sadness that even had some sweetness to it. Sometimes there were angry bursts in between sad chords. I observed a human being in so much pain I stopped thinking about having a party on the beach and sat with a beer in my hand, legs folded, stoking the fire while I allowed this man's pain to wash over and through me. In that moment, I knew that I understood pain. I didn't know what to do about it, but I realized I understood it in a very, very deep way. It was one of the most profound things I'd ever witnessed at that point. A man who was hurting, turning to his guitar and singing a song over and over to heal himself. He was in absolute pain and was not singing or playing for our enjoyment or to impress us. He was singing for himself as a form of healing. I've often wondered whatever happened to this person and if he eventually found comfort and understanding. And is he still with us in this game of life today? Now, as I begin my journey in re-entry into society as a professional in many ways, whether I'm a writer, a public speaker, a psychologist or a therapist, or just a brother or a veteran advocate, or who knows what, the future's looking quite bright. I'm looking forward to continuing this journey. And I'm discovering that the power to heal through mourning and grieving is real. And then the transformation that happens through these insights, wisdom, knowledge, kindness, and curiosity, that then transfer these skills and development to help others. Complicated bereavements are complicated. The man was grieving in some way, and we were allowed to keep him company. I think we even made him laugh at some point with our antics. Anyway, as I was sitting in a lecture with Dr. Bacon at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, she said to me, well, she said to all of us, but I felt like she was saying it to me, sometimes good enough is good enough. Then it all came full circle. We were in session with this man. He simply wanted to find a way back to himself. He needed to release some pain. He needed some relief. He needed to be seen and heard. Thinking back, he could have made many other choices. Instead, he just went to the beach, started a fire and played his guitar, and sang a song that helped him heal. He must have played and sang that song 30 times over about 2 hours, over and over, And then he thanked us, said good night, walked off into the darkness. I hope he found the insight that he sought. I find myself secretly wanting to know that he lived a good life and he has a life full of love and acceptance. But that's my wish for him, and that's my wish for you. I will close again with this quote from Carl Rogers. Human beings are essentially constructive in nature. They're damaged by their experiences. Carl Rogers. Now, what I'll add to what Dr. Rogers stated is, if human beings can be damaged by their experiences, then can't they be repaired by them as well? Things to think about. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great day. Long live the brotherhood. Bless and keep our fallen families. Invicta.